Hey everyone. Well, it's finally December, so I feel I can offer season's greetings without feeling like a total tool. Uh, but anyway, about a week back, I released a teaser chapter for Strange Days, Bill of the Dead Book 1. And, well, I'm ready to do it again. I have another book that's going out for beta reading either today or tomorrow, depending on how much time I have. I'm going to pick up the Christmas tree and all. Um, but it is Bent Outta Shape, the Hybrid of High Moon Book 2, continuing Tamara Bentley's adventures from the book Get Bent. I know a lot of people are looking forward to this. I've been looking forward to it as well. Had a lot of time, a lot of fun writing this one. But I wanted to offer a teaser chapter, especially for those of you who aren't part of the beta crew, which is well, everybody minus maybe 12 of you. Couple disclaimers first of all. If you haven't read Get Bent yet, I'm pretty sure there's at least one or two pretty big spoilers in the chapter I'm going to read. So maybe turn off now. Just take this as a quick, hey guys, and be happy with it. Proceed at your own risk. Two, this is obviously not finalized. It's going out for beta reading. It's only the third draft. The story is pretty set. And, I've done some basic editing on it, but it could very well change quite a bit before the final. So if I say something here and you read the final book and you're like, hey, what happened? That's what happened. And just a little note. With Strange Days, I read the very first chapter. Didn't really make sense to do that here. There's a prologue, and then there's some other stuff to set up the story, and there's a couple Easter eggs there and such. And I didn't want to throw something out that was like too big of a spoiler for the rest of the story or such. So we're going to jump ahead a few chapters. This is still pretty early in the story, in the first fifth of the book. So just to set it up, because this is not a spoiler because you learn this in about the first page or so. Get Bent took place at the end of summer. This takes place roughly about 4 months later. Oddly enough, as we move into the holidays here, it takes place around Christmas time. Disclaimer, it is not a Christmas story, just in case you were wondering. It is most definitely not a Christmas story. But it does take place during the holiday times, winter, all that stuff. So just to give a little setup. All right. And I probably should give some setup for this chapter because the first line I'm sure is going to sound really interesting coming without context, but I'm not going to because you'll have to read it for yourself, and hopefully it will be out soon. All right, a little bit from Bent Outta Shape, the Hybrid of High Moon, Book 2. One minute I was clutching onto a seriously cute naked guy, and the next I was airborne as something large and dark erupted from the bushes and hit me with the force of a small locomotive. I slammed it into a sapling, snapped it in two, and landed hard on the cold, unforgiving ground. The blow dazed me, but whatever hit me had been more intent on catching me by surprise than precision. The attack had been brutal, but sloppy. Thank goodness, too. God, how stupid was I? There I'd been, gawking like a preteen on our first date, completely forgetting that I was, in essence, standing at ground zero of enemy territory. Not wishing to give my assailant a chance for seconds, I rolled to my feet, simultaneously adjusting a bra strap that had slipped off my shoulder. It was a subconscious move, one I was barely aware making, but it apparently gave the impression I'd shrugged off the hit like nothing because the enormous black werewolf, one of those mega wolves, stopped short in its approach. You get that one for free. I forced my voice to remain steady, despite tasting blood in the back of my mouth. Before either of us could do much more than posture, Cass stepped in front of the monster wolf. "What are you doing, Mitch?" I should have known. I'd guessed it might have been him helping my dad run the show earlier. Mind you, that knowledge didn't really make me feel better. Normal werewolves were dangerous as all hell, but they were a step above. My father was one, and my uncle had been one too. I'd faced both and just barely lived to tell the tale, and that was only because Dad had been holding back at the time. Mitch's face transformed to that halfway state, just enough for me to recognize his asshole features. "Out of the way, Esther. She attacked our brother here." "But that's an order, girl." Cass glanced over her shoulder at me, and I saw in her eyes fear as well as regret. This wasn't her doing, but she couldn't do much to stop it. Disobeying the beta was a challenge to his authority, and Mitch was a superior foe, one she had little chance of besting. It's okay, I told her. Mind you, I wasn't entirely sure of my chances either, but I also wasn't so easily goaded. Forcing down every instinct that demanded I feed him his own teeth, I broke eye contact. I'm sorry. It was an accident. The look on Mitch's face was one of absolute outrage, but he hesitated to charge me. The ball was in my court, and I wasn't volleying back. As we faced each other, my mind racing to figure out how to end this in a way that saved him face and likewise, saved my face, my ears picked up others heading our way. Mitch's battle cry had summoned an audience. He was probably hoping I'd take a swing, giving him plenty of witnesses that the hybrid had turned hostile and was thus fair game for murderizing. But instead they were going to be my witness that I wasn't going to play his game. What? He growled. Like I said, it was an accident. I apologize. For a moment I thought my gambit was going to play off. Score one for diplomacy. But then David stepped in. She's right, he said. It was my fault. She didn't... Ugh. Mitch backhanded him away, knocking him to the ground like a ton of bricks. Nobody asked you, whelp. Cass took a step toward David's prone form, and Mitch raised his hand menacingly at her. That was all I needed to crumble diplomacy up and toss it into my mental trash can. I balled my fists. Like I said, that was an accident, but what comes next won't be. Even as I raced forward, a part of me questioned the sanity of what I was doing. Again, Mitch was one of those mega wolves. I didn't know what made him different from the rest, only that they were. They were like the queen alien from that old movie, minus the part about laying eggs. Mitch took a swing at me, his enormous paw looking like a frying pan with knives glued to it, but his advantage in height was offset by the fact that I was barely 5'3". I ducked his swing easily enough, stepped in and drove a fist into his gut. Now, physics was never my best class, but despite having plenty of evidence to the contrary, I still expected the outcome of me punching the living equivalent of a brick wall to be a shattered hand. After all, that's how things worked in the normal world. Pity for him that normalcy ended where the hollows began. My fist sank in and he doubled over as all the air in his lungs was forcibly expelled. I spun, reached up to wrap an arm around his throat, and flipped him over my shoulder like a bag of trash. He landed hard on his back, panting like, well, a dog. As frightened as I was to face him, I remembered two little factoids. He was big and terrifying, but I'd always considered him a bit of a dumb bulb, even next to Craig. Second, and perhaps more important, when I'd faced my uncle, I'd been injured and near exhaustion. But I was fresh now, and was just getting warmed up, in a manner of speaking anyway. Suddenly, Mitch didn't seem as big or bad as I'd maybe thought. Mind you, just because he was an idiot didn't mean I wasn't one too. I allowed myself an ill-advised moment of self-satisfaction, noting all the wolves who had appeared from out of the shadows to watch, when I should have been pummeling the snot out of my opponent. Some days I could be a real amateur. Still on his back, Mitch reached out, his arms more than long enough for the job, grabbed hold of my ankles and yanked my feet out from under me. The back of my head impacted against the tree root, making me see stars, and then I was flung like a rag doll again as Mitch rolled to his feet and tossed me away like a bad habit. This time, the tree I slammed into was the real deal, a big old oak with a trunk at least 4 feet across. I felt something shift uncomfortably inside me and realized I'd probably cracked a rib. Still, I was lucky. A normal person would have been splattered like a bug against a windshield. Of course, a normal person would have run screaming their head off, not pulled themselves up for round 2. I winced as I tried to stand up straight. Yeah, that collision had definitely taken something out of me. Good thing the light wasn't better, otherwise I'd been able to look down and see all the bruises covering my body. Instead, I turned my head skyward. My ears told me Mitch was on the move again. I didn't have time to worry about bruises when he was intent on making me a corpse. Ah, there. A sturdy branch hung about 6 feet out of my reach. Impossible for most, but barely a game of hopscotch for me. I leapt as Mitch closed the distance between us, grabbed hold of the branch, and then kicked out with both legs. The dumb fuck made the mistake of looking up at this wrong moment, allowing me to connect right beneath his chin. His jaws slammed shut with an audible click of teeth meeting teeth. It wasn't my best shot, but it was enough to back him up several steps and give me some breathing room. The only question now was whether to go up or down. Down was more familiar territory, being a wrestler and all. Problem was, any advantages I had in this fight were negated by the fact that he was so freaking big. He could easily shred me in the time it took to get within arm's reach, and I didn't even have the meager protection of a t-shirt covering my body. No, up made more sense. Gravity was the big equalizer. Well, that and the fact that growing up a tomboy in rural Pennsylvania had afforded me plenty of practice climbing trees. Oh, my poor mom. She'd wanted a little princess and gotten me instead. The upside, though, was it was pretty awesome to be me some days. I easily pulled myself up onto the branch, then started to scramble higher, making sure to get out of reach of Mitch's vertical game. If he wanted me, he'd have to come and get me. All right, that is a little snippet from Bent Outta Shape, The Hybrid of High Moon, Book 2, which we see Tamara has obviously managed to piss off a werewolf again. Again, that is fairly early in the story. For those of you wondering about the other side of her heritage, Tamara being half werewolf, half witch, don't worry. There is actually plenty of that going on as the story progresses. Tamara's Christmas plans, let's just say, are about to get changed ever so slightly. So again, just a little taste of things to come. Hopefully, it has wet your whistle. It is going out for beta reading this weekend, and hopefully, I'll get it back soon. Get it out for editing and get it into your hands before you know it. All right. Hope to do more of these again soon, and I mean that. I'm probably going to start recording some more readings, both for new stuff and existing stuff for my YouTube channel. So, if you like hearing the sound of my voice for whatever reason, because I know I don't, there'll be more to come.